You are now listening to the Final Whistle Sports Podcast. Here is your host, Blaine Spencer.
Welcome back in, everybody, to another edition of the Final Whistle Sports Podcast. You know who I am. I am your host, Blaine Spencer. I've got one of my regular guests coming back for another appearance, my good friend, Joe Chichilitti. Joe, how are you doing? Thanks for coming on. I know we've been kind of playing back and forth to get this set up these last couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Doing well, Blaine. Doing well. Just surviving the holiday season. You know what I mean? You go out to your stores, you buy a couple shoes for the family, this, that, and the other thing. You order Amazon nowadays. So, just spending money left and right, just like the MLB free agency right now.
Oh, look at you already snagging that all in. Honestly, I've just been so bloated from Thanksgiving still these last 2 weeks because I just ate way too much food. And then I just laid in bed. And then, of course, like how you said, buying stuff on Amazon. My whole family already knows what I've got them because we share an Amazon account. So, there's that. So, everyone knows what they're getting from me for Christmas. I was like, well, that sucks. You're going to have to better smile on Christmas morning.
Exactly. Just don't even wrap it. Just, leave it in the Amazon box and call it a day.
Oh, I did, because I ordered them all separate in different packages, so I know each package is what.
Very nice.
As you can see, we are thriving on this Thursday morning. But we're going to jump into some football talk. I know it's been a minute because last episode that I had was an interview with Eastern Washington wide receiver Nolan Ulm. So if you haven't yet, go check that out. He gives some great insight into the college football world as well as the life of a wide receiver and how their techniques go in and out. But check that out. But, Joe, you're a Philly guy. Let's jump right into probably miraculously how our two favorite teams are arguably in the best division in football right now, and that is the NFC least, so to speak. Now it's NFC best. But your Birds, 11 and 1 now. What are you seeing from them? Artistically as a team, I know Washington makes me feel happy. Is the only reason that you guys have an L. But talk to me about your Birds.
I mean, the Birds are hot, man. They are. I mean, the vibe is incredible here within the Philadelphia area. Everybody's hot. Everybody's feeling well. Big divisional matchup this week versus the Giants. I mean, anytime the NFC gets together here with a divisional matchup, it's always going to be a tough one. It's going to be a defensive bout. But yeah, Hurts looks good. He looks like the clear-cut MVP right now. I mean,
you got a guy. Mahomes, then you've got him ahead of Mahomes.
Yeah. I mean, you got a guy that against Green Bay went for 150 yards on the ground, and the next week goes for 300 plus against Tennessee Titans. I think on the calendar, you looked at their schedule, and that game last week versus the Titans was the game to be like, okay, here's a really true test. You're talking about a ground and pound team, works off the play action. How are they going to be able to stand up? And the Eagles came out and just dominated them, beat them at their own game. I know I was one where I took Tennessee plus the 4.5. And I was like, you know what? I think the Eagles win this game, but I think they only win by 3. Next thing I know, they're up 21 points. It's just they looked really good. Their offensive line is playing incredible ball right now. Hurts is playing great. Miles Sanders looks like he has returned back to form. And I mean, God, let's talk about this. A.J. Brown literally got a GM fired this week. So there was that too. So no, the team looks incredible. They look like they're the best right now in the NFC East. They look like they're the best in the NFC. That can be said.
Oh, without question, you have to put them as the clear front runner. And I think it's sickening that arguably it's Dallas is the second best team in the NFC behind them. But I think you nailed it right on the head that A.J. Brown made. I don't know if you've seen the clip, but Ryan Tannehill went up afterwards to A.J. Brown. He was like, "You really gonna do us like that?" He's like, "I gotta do something to rub it in everyone's face." And yeah, he just was a man on a mission that last weekend. And you could see that Jalen was feeding him to make sure, because you could tell that there was some bitterness to that move from this offseason. But I think this was a telling sign. Like you said, you took Tennessee. I had Tennessee covering as well, especially after these last couple of weeks of them. You're seeing a mixed bag in Philadelphia, right? You had Green Bay absolutely torch them and make it a game somehow, even with Jordan Love playing in that fourth quarter. and
Mm-hmm.
then you had them struggle against Indianapolis. You had to have them score at the final 2 minutes. The loss to Washington, which Eagles fans are still extremely bitter about because of all the missed calls by the officials. And then even that Texans game the week before that on that Thursday night wasn't overly convincing. So I think that was a telling sign that you're seeing the Eagles start to develop and finally have their identity set and fold that we kind of seen from earlier on the season. They went that through a little bit of a lull, especially with how the teams that they were playing against record wise were looking, right? So almost took like they took a step off the gas, and then they laid it back down and played to their A game, so to speak, this last week against Tennessee.
I mean, I think it's like any given Sunday kind of thing. Like any team can beat any other team. That's just how it is, and that's just what it's gonna be. Like, yeah, even though the Texans are what 1-10-1 or 1-11-1 now, like they're still an NFL team. They can still win a game. Like anything's possible. Even when Washington came into town, like no one really kind of expected Washington to even be close in that game or even win that game. But like in the end, it's Monday night. Heineke came out and balled out, and that's just how it is. It can happen. That's what the beautiful part about NFL playoffs is like any team can beat any other team. Like I always revert back to that Giants run back in what was it, 08 and was it
Right.
11 or 12? Like both them runs, they came in as a 6 seed and like just somehow would win games and then ended up winning the Super Bowl and beat arguably the best team ever built with the Patriots. Like it's just any given Sunday, and it's always tough to predict the NFL week in and week out. Like we say, the Eagles is best on paper right now. They're 11-1. They look great, but like there could be a team that comes along, and I don't want to put names out there, but if Tampa Bay gets healthy, you never know. Like the offensive line can get healthy, and boom, Tom Brady's right there. Like it's just any given Sunday, anything can happen.
You perfectly segued into my next question for you because you obviously were already thinking about Tampa Bay and what Tom Brady. I know you already admitted off air that you passed out before the game ended, but I stayed up and watched the GOAT go to work in those last 3 minutes. I mean, New Orleans kind of handed them that game towards the end, but still, you put the ball in Tom Brady's hands in that fourth quarter, and they've got a chance to win the game. All bets are off. Like you're gonna take him 99% of the time to get the job done. And in that final drive, he scored. They called it back on a penalty, then still scored with a couple seconds left.
Mm-hmm.
Just this man has no limits. I feel like, honestly, unfortunately, with the divorce with Giselle, he's actually finally come into his own. I feel like that burden's kind of been finally lifted off of him off the field, that you're starting to see him try and amp it up on the field.
I personally don't think the off the field stuff has really been giving him the issue. If I really
Really?
have to, if I have to say anything that's like been a leading cause, it's his O line. Like I noticed once Jensen got hurt and now Wirfs got hurt, he has played significantly worse. Like I know they're on what are they 3-1 over the last four or something of down
Yeah,
that
and
nature.
they gave the Cleveland game away. So
But like they're not winning convincingly any of these games. Like they're winning way too close. Like he has to make this incredible comeback most of the times if not. Um, their rushing looks horrendous. Like Fournette's averaging like 2.5 yards a carry. Like White's barely averaging 2.5 yards a carry. Like the only way they're kind of the only way they're moving down the field is like these dink and dunk plays. Like Godwin's getting almost 12 targets a game. Rashard White's getting 8 targets. Same thing now with Fournette back. Like that's the only way they're getting the ball down the field is like these dink and dunks because their offensive line cannot hold the pressure. Um, but I think once Wirfs comes back, I don't know if Jensen is
I don't think he's very. It doesn't look good.
okay. So if Wirf definitely needs to come back, that's the first thing because it needs to protect his blind side there. But I think once if you see that offensive line somehow form back together, there's a shot that 4th seed in the NFC South, Tampa Bay could potentially come out. Like I don't know. They could win a game or two. They could beat Dallas, right? Like Dallas looks great. They looked great last year, right? Then they get that home game versus San Fran and they lost because of God, who knows what. Like because of some clock stuff, right? That's the blame rule. But like I don't trust Dallas. I still won't. Like I just don't get it. So
Well, I don't think anybody's going to truly trust the Dallas Cowboys unless they're Michael Irvin, basically, so to speak, as his hype man in Dallas Cowboy history.
True.
But as it comes to the Bucks, I mean, you're right. They've only scored over 22 points once this season, and that was against Kansas City in a shootout. And that was honestly just them scoring some garbage time touchdowns towards the end, right? So their defense is not the issue here. I mean, they're saying they do have some injuries in their secondary, but they're still holding teams to like their top 5 in points per game allowed. Like their defense is going to keep them in games. But their offense feels so eerily similar to Tom's last year in New England. There's just so many different nuances that they're trying to think. They have to be so methodical down the field just for them to give themselves that scoring opportunity. So that just creates another honestly, an interior battle within the team that they have to be so patient because of, like you said, they are not explosive. They look slow. They can't block. There's issues galore all on the offensive side of the ball. Mike Evans and Tom feel like that they never played together. That's what it looks like this year. Other than Godwin's coming off an injury, and Julio is in and out of the lineup every other week. There's just no consistency there.
Yeah, exactly. But again, it comes down to this: is like Brady needs a security blanket. And that's what Chris Godwin is right now. That's what Leonard Fournette is, and that's what Rashard White is because it's an easy, short targets. Evans is an outside receiver. He needs a little bit more time to develop. Well, you can't get time to develop if you're getting pass rushed within 2 to 3 seconds. Again, it comes back to the offensive line for me. Like the offensive line's healthy. If they can block the edge rushers, they'll be a lot better. Like you kind of saw that first half of that Monday night game. Brady was getting pressured so much. And then he started missing throws deeper when he did have the time because he thought he was getting pressured. And let's be honest, I mean, the Saints are an okay defensive team, but they're no juggernaut here. They're no San Fran. But yeah, I don't know. Like they're on paper right now, Tampa Bay should make the playoffs. I don't see Carolina jumping them. I don't see the Saints jumping them. And I know Falcons, man, but like I don't see them jumping them either.
You don't see your Falcons making a run?
No, but did you hear breaking news right now? Desmond Ridder has been named the starter after the bye week.
I mean, we talked about this earlier on when we came on that we thought that this was going to be the timeline that we would see Ridder if they were going to make that switch. Mm-hmm. I mean, what are you going to do, though, if I mean, honestly, that's an interesting move because it's not like Mariota's played bad. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
He's been solid. I mean, the team has given away a lot of their games this year.
Yeah, last week kind of really gave me the telling on like the writing was on the wall. There was multiple plays where like you got a 6'3", 6'4" wide receiver in Drake London, and you're like overthrowing him on like a curl route. Like,
right.
Come on, man. Like you got to start being a little more accurate. Like when you got games that like, you know, you're only passing the ball for 180 yards, and like it's not like their ground game was, you know, great. Like that's a problem for me. Like offensive line on paper has been playing actually decent ball. Lindstrom has actually been one of the best guards, actually the best lineman right now in the league for us. So, yes, it's time to make the switch. I've been talking to a lot of my buddies who are Falcons fans as well, and it's just at the point now where you need to like let Ridder play, give him the end, give him the 4 or 5 games to end the year. You know it's going to be bad. You're going to have your bad times, but you need to see some flashes. You need to see something. You need to see what you're going to get out of him before you go into the draft in this offseason right now. Yeah, that's the big thing I think for the Falcons here. Even if they made the playoffs, they weren't going to win game 1.
Right.
Like you're going to most likely go up against a Cowboys, right? Or, you know, God forbid the Eagles drop off, probably the Eagles, right? I'll take this 10 times out of 10. You're taking Dallas or the Eagles over the Falcons. That's just what it is. So, yeah, and I think it's a good move. I think Smith should have made the move probably a week or 2 before, but I understand what he was doing. You know, the team was actually winning with Mariota, so I think that was a good choice there.
Well, because these last couple games, it was Pittsburgh, Washington. Like those are 2 games that you guys had. Those were your guys' games to lose. Like you guys, Mariota got the tipped interception at the goal line in the Washington game when you guys were going in for the lead, and then the Pittsburgh game, like that's a game that like you shouldn't lose with how bad Pittsburgh looks this year. But like
Yeah,
I'm trying
and
to look at it right now, like
no, those are
kind of
like the
you
two
still had
recent
the
ones.
ball with an opportunity towards the end of that game, so it's not like you guys had it was written that you guys were going to lose, but still like. But you're right, like 13 of 24, 167, a touchdown, and an INT. Like that's not going to get it done against Pittsburgh at home, too, so to speak. So
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, I think it was a smart move by Smith. He should have got it done in a week or two, but it is what it is. But yeah, if you want to talk about the NFC least, you kind of move that to the South right now because they look like dog shit. All four of them look like
all four
terrible.
teams are fucking awful.
Where you look the opposite way, and the NFC East looks great. I mean, all the teams are they all over 500 right now? I
Yeah,
could be
everyone's
wrong.
over 500. That's
Yeah,
all.
like every
Yeah, I think Washington's right now on the outside looking in because of the tie with the
okay.
Giants. So the Seattle's in there right now. But like I
Um,
think now with Garoppolo hurt for San Fran, that door, the whole NFC West, and is now wide open with how this NFC playoff picture looks. So I feel like the NFC is definitely the weaker division in comparison to the AFC. But I didn't think that we were going to see so many teams actually look better than what we initially thought. Like for me as a Washington fan, like Washington's already at their win total that I freaking set for the year. It's like
that's fair. I mean, I didn't think nobody expected Seattle to be where they were. I don't think people expected the Giants to be where they were. Um, I don't think, but I also on the flip side, I don't think people expected the Rams to be where they were, and I don't think
correct.
people expected Tampa Bay to be where they are. So you got definitely flip flop there. I mean, the NFC North's only going to have one team. The NFC South's only going to have one team. So you have to figure out what's going to come out of the West and what's going to come out of the East. I think ultimately, yeah. I'm not sold that San Fran is dead in the water by any
I'm
means.
not either because honestly, Purdy looked pretty good.
Yes, and here's my thing, and tell me if you disagree or agree. Especially being out west, you see a little bit more probably and get a little bit more out of the Western market. But if there was ever kind of a team to need a replacement at quarterback and be able to like just plug and play kind of thing, it's San Fran and their offense and Kyle Shanahan.
Oh no, I couldn't agree more. They
Like,
they honestly can just the way that Shanahan runs his offense, and you could see with how Garoppolo and Purdy played, it didn't look different at all, right? It's all it is just get the ball out to your playmakers and let them make the plays. Like it's not like they're taking so many deep shots down the field. Like it's all
exactly.
set up within the system with Kittle, Samuel, McCaffrey. Like you're just trying to get those three guys the touches as much as possible. And like, so to speak, like when you have Brandon Ayuk as your fourth option and he leads the team in receiving yards, like
Yeah.
that's kind of a great thing to have if you're a San Fran fan. But like, so you can't rule them out. I know Purdy had a good game, but that's also because no one expected him to be touching the field at all of this year.
I agree.
So the one thing with him when he came out of college at Iowa State was he had all the arm talent, but he made his decision making was his issue these last couple of years, which is why he fell so far in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Because he had that great Iowa State had that great year a couple of years ago where they were knocking on the door in the Big 12, but then they've been mediocre, even though they had Brees Hall and Brock Purdy. But so you're trying to figure out will he make those correct decisions? I think Shanahan will give them the opportunities with how his offense flows to honestly be like, all right, 1, 2, throw it away. Like, don't even try and get to your third or fourth option. Like, we're just going to simplify it.
But like you also know it just as well as I do. San Fran isn't the type where they're trying to take big shots down the field. They want to get the ball in their playmakers' hands as soon as possible and let them make the play. Like Deebo Samuels literally was a running back good chunk of last year, or catching the ball behind the line good chunk of last year and this year. CMC is one of the best with the ball in his hands, especially when he gets it handing off or just out of the backfield. Ayuk, I mean, again, I haven't watched a lot of San Fran, but I do know a good chunk about San Fran. A lot of times it was a curl route, a slant, just a 10-yard over the middle. It was nothing like a deep shot over, over the top. And I think that's why, like I said, like just replacing a guy in terms of Jimmy, like Jimmy was never the type of, he was slinging the ball 30, 40 yards down the field,
Right.
and now if you put a guy like Brock Purdy, like I said, I don't know much about Purdy, but if he's a competent backup quarterback, you probably can succeed. And you also don't need to win games by scoring 24, 31, 42 points. This defense is the best in the league. It's been shown, it's been proven. And they've held their defense, I think, over the last 4 or 5, they held their opponents under 10 or 17, something like
In
that.
the
So that's
second
all you
half,
got.
they've only allowed 7 points in the second.
Exactly. So if you could hold your opponent under 21, so you got to tell me all you need to score is 3 touchdowns, you got a shot. And I think Purdy can do that.
Oh, easily. And with what DeMeco Ryans is doing, like if he doesn't get a head coaching job next year, like something is smelling fishy. Unless he turns it down, just to stay in San Fran. But if he doesn't get an offer, like the way that defense has been humming this year and even last year, like you'd be stupid not to like try and get your hands on him as a potential head coach.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. But like I was having a discussion with a couple folks so far. It's like, now with the injury, if San Fran can somehow get a number 2 seed out of this, that's going to be best for them because you're going to at least get 2 games at home if you do win the first. However,
Hard.
I know. However, if you have to go to Philadelphia and go through them, it's going to be tough. I mean, you got a rookie quarterback then coming out, one of his maybe first, second in Philadelphia, prime time. It's gonna be tough. Like it's an atmosphere here. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's an atmosphere. Same thing with like Seattle. If you got to go to Seattle, I know it's a divisional foe, but like how Seattle is come playoff time. It gets loud. They're the 12th man. They're known for it. Probably some weather's gonna somehow be in effect there too. It's just all going to come down to it. And if San Fran can play their cards right and somehow get into a 2 seed, maybe even a 3 seed, I think it's for the best for them and their playoff success.
Yeah, the problem is, however, is that Minnesota's schedule towards the end of the year is so easy now. The rest of the way, like I think they're going to be able to hold on to that 2 seed, while San Fran still has some tough games. Like honestly, now with Purdy back there, Buccaneers this weekend's is not a gimme now with how both defenses look. Then you're in Seattle, like you said, on a short week, like no gimme there. Washington looks better than what we've all expected. That's not going to be a gimme game, even though it's at home. Then you have the Raiders and the Cardinals, so you probably give yourselves 2 there. But you got to probably win 3 or 4, 3 out of goes 3-2 the rest of the way to hold on to a potential 3 seed. And there's no way Minnesota's gonna lose 3 games by that point out, I think. So
I mean, there's a possibility. I mean, like I said,
the Vikings don't look great. Let's be honest. Like they're probably the weakest, second best team record wise in football that we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I mean their offense is dominating. I mean, that's no questions to ask unless it's prime time. Their defense is suspect. That's the issue. That's where you need to take advantage of them. They got the Lions this week. Somehow Vegas has them as the underdog, which I don't know, but Vegas always knows. That's what I always say. So they got the Lions this week, divisional matchup again. You never know with division matchups. You got the Colts after that. Yeah, they probably should win, but I don't know. Like you never know. Jeff Saturday could have this team ready to rock and roll, and they could do something. And then, actually, it's on a short week. That's a Saturday game. And then after that, it gets kind of tough. I mean, you got the Giants after that. Giants on paper has been good. I don't know how they're winning games, but they are. And then Green Bay on New Year's Day. Never know.
Rodgers will be playing.
That's true. That is true. But I think Rodgers is going to want to play. He's going to want to try to, put it to him a little bit.
Right the ship.
Yeah. And then the last game, I mean, probably at that point, maybe they're not playing for anything. So that's the reason why. So it's the Bears, but like it's the Bears. I mean, they're not that good. So, yeah, no, I mean, you're right. Like Vikings probably have their, have it out for the number 2 seed, that's for sure. But, like I said, to go back to it, if San Fran can find a way to somehow get to the 2 seed, it's going to be set. They'll be nice. So
It will be nice. Let's jump to the AFC. I want to get your take on how honestly, like the AFC East, very similar to how the NFC East has looked, completely raising eyebrows. I mean, who would have? I mean, I had the Patriots as the third team in this division. I didn't think that they were going to be in last. And kudos to the New York. Honestly, New York sports is like, I mean, they've been exceeded expectations, and I know New York is like bumping right now. And I said this a couple weeks ago. I was like, do not fall for it. New York sports always have and always will let you down when you need it most. So don't get too ahead of yourself, New York fans. But I think the biggest thing that I want to talk about is I think arguably that this AFC, you have your 1A, 1B, and 1C, right? You've got Buffalo, Kansas City, Cincinnati. I'm going to put Cincinnati now in that conversation. Baltimore, sorry, you're on that lower tier because I don't know if Lamar Jackson's going to be able to get back on that football field again.
all right.
So, but I think it's not just the Chiefs and the Bills. I think the Bengals deserve to be in that conversation. I was worried about them the first couple weeks because they looked like they had nothing going for them, and they've righted that ship. So,
I think it's fair to say. My thing is this: it's all going to come down to like who has the home field advantage, and here's my reasoning why. It's because
nobody wants to go to Buffalo.
Nobody wants to go to Buffalo, and nobody wants to go to Kansas City. Like Kansas City is no fun in the wintertime, January, February. But let's talk about it like this. You got a team like Miami that needs to now come to Buffalo. And I know they go there.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh no, next week.
I think
it's
next
the Jets.
weekend. Yeah. And so it's like, all right, like Miami's not gonna go there, right? But now let's put it on the flip side, right? What happens if Buffalo, loses a couple games, right? They take an L versus Miami again. And maybe lose another one down the line. And Miami goes on a winning streak, and then they got to play at home, right? So that's going to be great for them. And I don't think this is going to happen because of the weather in North America, but like what happens if it's like a 100-degree day again in Miami and it's like they played Buffalo and Buffalo just like did not know what they were doing. Like they were exhausted. They weren't conditioned 100% when they played. Do I think that's going to be the weather case? No, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be 70, 80 degrees. It's going to be a great day for football. But, like to say like you might have to go to Buffalo where it's like windy and snowy and it might be good for Buffalo, but also it could be bad for Buffalo. Like,
Right.
Do you remember that game, that Monday night game versus the Patriots? And Josh Allen couldn't even throw the ball more than 5 yards because the wind was like 40 miles an hour.
And all the Patriots did was hand the ball off.
Exactly.
And they still won that game. So
exactly. So, it just comes down to like where stuff's gonna be. But let's avoid all that talk. I'll stay away from all that. But yeah, I think Buffalo looked great to start. I think, but ever since Josh Allen got injured with his elbow, they haven't looked the same. He hasn't looked the same. They're running the ball a lot better than before. But I think they knew they had to do that to succeed in the league now. Kansas City looks great. Like, yeah, they took a tough loss to Cincinnati. It's going to happen, but Cincinnati also looked good and shut down Kelsey. So I think it works both ways. I don't want to say it like this, but I still think Cincinnati is probably the number one offense in the league when Jamar Chase is healthy.
And that's not as outlandish as people would think anymore, right? With how lethal these guys are offensively. And like the way they looked was like, I mean, Mixon was out too. It wasn't like they were at full strength. Like Chase was probably not 100% yet, but he was making the plays down the stretch when you needed him to. Higgins made a couple of big time catches. And Pirine, who would have thought Samaje Perine would look like a factor in that game, right? So there's so many different nuances with the AFC, especially because it's so you're just it's going to be shootout after shootout. Like it's going to be, and if those three teams end up playing, whoever plays who, right? Who has the ball last? That's how it feels like with those three teams. So just because of how potent they are, I mean, Buffalo has looked more suspect because of his UCL injury. Like honestly, I thought Josh Allen was going to be Tommy John. Like that's what it looked like and sounded like from the initial reports, right? And they're just going to shut it down. So, but Singletary has come on now. I think that's been a huge component with them, which is why they let Zach Moss go, right? So he's getting like 60 to 70 yards, which is making teams think about the run. It's not like they're going to be overly running the ball, but they're running it enough for the other teams to respect it, which I think has helped.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at him though, like exactly what you said, like it's going to be a shootout. And again, I've kind of noticed this, especially over the last year or two, where like your secondary doesn't really matter as much because as long as you have 2 to 3 good pass rushers, like that's all you really can do is you just have to pass rush these quarterbacks. Like Patrick Mahomes can get out of it, but Patrick Mahomes can make any throw in any spot. Josh Allen is kind of getting to that point now. Joe Burrow looks like, he can just throw wherever he wants and his wide receivers are going to go get it. And I don't think there's a cornerback on this planet that can cover Diggs or can cover Jamar Chase. I think that's just what it comes down to be. But like if again, you kind of seen like a pass rush needs to be there to even have a chance versus that other team. I mean,
and
let's
Von
look at
Miller out now, torn ACL. That's a huge loss for Buffalo.
huge. Yeah. I mean, they had Ed Oliver, who I mean, I loved Ed Oliver ever since he came out. But yeah, Von Miller was huge for them. That would have helped them out drastically. Kansas City, Frank Clark is a beast. Like, dude's incredible. And who is it? Oh, I'm drawing a blank here. Who's number 8 for them? It's the defensive end.
8 is it? I think isn't it Ingram? Is it Melvin Ingram?
No. Oh God, I'm pretty sure he came from Cincinnati, actually.
Oh crap! Hold
I'm
on.
drawing a blank, but anyway, he's another dominant pass rusher that Kansas City has, and then they got Karlaftis from Purdue too.
Right.
So another like again like they have the pass rushing, and Cincinnati they have Hendrickson, and they got somebody else too.
Hubbard.
Hubbard, yeah, that's it. So like again, you just need like kind of that stronger pass rush duo that every once in a while is just going to get you that big sack that you need.
Right.
Again, like, and it just comes down to like, yeah, the secondary kind of matters, but it doesn't. Like Tre'Davious White
It's Dunlap, Carlos Dunlap.
That's it, Carlos Dunlap. Yep. So it comes down to like, yeah, your secondary could just be okay and manageable because if you have a great pass rush, you don't need to hold on to the wide receivers as long.
Right.
Like when I was watching the AFC West match with Kansas City, or not Kansas City, excuse me, the Chargers and the Raiders last week.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Raiders should have lost that game. Like on paper, the Chargers are a better team, but because Max Crosby and Chandler Jones were just wreaking havoc in that backfield, that's why the Chargers lost that game. Like it just comes down to all that. And I don't even want to get into the Chargers talk, man. I'm so
they're so fake. But I wasn't gonna ask you about the Chargers. But how is Nathaniel Hackett done in Denver? Like I feel like he's a one and done. Like because you're not gonna move on from Russell after spending all that money. They have looked god awful.
I think the burning question here is why? Like, what is going on? Like, why is this happening in Denver? Like, do you have an answer for it?
Like, I honestly, I know that. I mean, they had that little fiasco. Was it not last weekend, but the weekend before, right, where the defensive tackle started screaming at Russ. But because the defense has played lights out, it's not the defense is not the issue. Like this team cannot score if their life depended on it. It's worse than the Tampa Bay situation, right? So it's like, and it's not like you don't have the pieces. I just feel like their offensive line has been really bad. So I'll give that a little bit of the blame. But I think play calling has also been awful. Like there's no separation, there's no creativity. Like they're pretty much, and then they can't run the ball if their life depended on it since Williams has gotten hurt. But they couldn't really run the ball with Williams in the lineup. So that team is just an absolute mess. And you got to give Russell some of the blame because he has not made the throws that he usually makes. So, like, honestly, like, I've got a conspiracy theory that, like, his success is Seattle, right? Like, what was Seattle doing that was making Russell thrive, and what is Denver doing that is completely the opposite, right? So it's not like he went awful overnight. I mean,
I don't know if you've seen somebody on Twitter is doing that he has more bathrooms than passing touchdowns for the last what week are we in? 13th, 14th week. And he thought it was just going to be done after like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, right? I don't remember how many bathrooms he has. It's a lot. Like it's an absurd number, like 13 or something like that. But there's still a chance that it could finish out the year that his bathrooms are still more than his passing touchdowns for this year.
how many passes does it even have?
It's not a lot. It's not a lot. Don't get me wrong. I have to take a look at it, but it's not a lot.
Oh my God. You know what that reminds me of is when Cleveland was so bad with Baker those first couple of years, and then I think you probably I know you watch a little bit of First Take when Stephen A. Smith was like ripping Baker Mayfield. He's like, the man's got more progressive commercials than wins. And it's just like, oh my Lord. It just reminded me of that. It's like, he goes like, don't get me wrong, like the man's a great actor, great for progressive, but like the man's gotta win a goddamn football game.
Yeah.
And that situation for him is completely fallen off the rails.
Yeah.
I think he might be done.
He might actually start tonight. I don't know when you're going to air this, but he might start tonight for the Rams. That's what I was told.
Hopefully this will be out right now
Okay.
after I get this done.
Okay.
Do you start tonight? Would you start?
Might. No, I would not. But
I would go Wolford.
Wolford's injured right now. That's the issue.
So it's going to be Bryce Perkins tonight?
Yeah. I just don't think Baker knows the playbook yet. Like
they
that
sent
would
it to him on the plane apparently.
Okay, yeah, but Sean McVay's playbook, it's got to be nutcase, right?
I mean, I feel like he's eerily similar to Shanahan, plug and play type of deal. It's not like they're gonna overcomplicate it, but now they have no weapons to get the ball to other than Van Jefferson. Like,
whoa, they got Tutu Atwell.
Don't give Is Tutu on your fantasy team? Is that why you're trying to hype him up?
No. He's a good receiver. You know where he came from, though? You know what college he came out of?
He had one good game last week because he had to play. He doesn't even step on the goddamn field if Cooper and Allen Robinson are even healthy.
Whoa, come on. Don't throw him under the bus like that. He came from a great college, dude.
He was a great player at Louisville with Lamar. Yeah. But that was a completely different Louisville team, all right? But stop anybody when they forget.
But I do want to put on the flip side for the Denver stuff real quick before we put it to bed. Seattle looks great, right?
Oh my Lord. And Gino, we trust. How smart does Pete Carroll look right now? Honestly, the biggest thing that has after Gino's looked so well is like how close was this competition if they said Drew Lock, it was literally the flip of a coin that Drew Lock was the favorite coming out of camp.
I don't know. I mean, I want to go back
because I was like, is Drew Lock going to be putting up these same type of numbers? I'm like, there's no shot. No. But I'm also like, but you're also the one thing that I have to give kudos to Seattle is that somebody has finally emulated something that Gino was successful at in college. Ball placement. You give him time, he knows his ball placement, his accuracy was his calling card coming out of school, right? That was never the situation that he was put in with the Jets. That was never the situation that he was put in with the other 3 or 4 teams that he's been jumping around.
Yeah. But we go back to our preview that we did, and we talked about we touched on a couple other divisions. We never thought Seattle would even have more than 4 wins this year.
Oh no, I had them as a top 5 in the draft.
Yeah, everybody
thought. Right now they're the 7th seed in the NFC.
Yeah, I mean they look good. They're playing as a team, and I think, you didn't want to really say it, but it looks like Russ was the cancer on this team.
Well, that's what they've been throwing slow jabs at all throughout the year. That one person was so focused on himself these last couple of years, and it kind of took away the team component.
Exactly. And it's not like this team is like just relying on like one thing. Like let's just say they're just like relying on their defense or they're just relying on their rushing game. Like they look good all around. Their running game looks great. Their offensive lines are playing really solid. DK's getting the ball. Tyler Lockett's getting the ball. The defense is actually playing decent ball. And now they have potentially a top 5 pick. And then still their own first round. And then it's also beneficial that like Gino's playing well because it looks like they don't need a quarterback now in the draft. Like we were
You've
talking
got a
about,
bridge guy now for another year or two. So it looks like probably.
yeah, and it's not like like we need to take, I don't know, let's just say we need to take C.J. Stroud or like we need to take Bryce Young. Like no, like they can go get a guy like a Will Anderson or they can go get a guy like a Jalen Carter or what's his name, Bryce Murphy out of Clemson. Like
Right.
they can go get a guy like that, or if they want, they can go get a tackle, like another tackle to be on the other side of Equano. Like they really set themselves up, and now with kind of this winning atmosphere, and now potentially having a franchise running back in the backfield, they're kind of set up, man. They're kind of set up.
And with Seattle, they are just it's complete football, right? It's not like they're like you said, it's not one set or the other. Gino is arguably the most accurate quarterback in football this year.
Yeah.
And if you're a Denver fan, like you must be sick to your stomach that like what they gave up and now they've lost this trade and it's not even close.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think about because
Yeah.
honestly, Fance looked good. It's not like then you have Walker was the draft pick from that trade. So you're like, my goodness. And then honestly, people don't give Tyler Lockett enough credit as a number 2 wide receiver. Like
No.
arguably, I think Seattle's got the most underrated receiving group in football. Like Marquise Goodwin is a solid number 3 option as a speedster, right? Because he's
Yeah,
the true player to stretch the field. I feel like
their 1-2 combo, Seattle's is probably what, top 7 in the league?
oh yeah, without question.
I mean, there's definitely like a couple that just like are like 1, 2, and 3. I mean, Chase and Higgins is, fantastic. Hill and Waddle in Miami's like great. I mean,
Right.
that's just 2 I know off the top of my head. I really would have to start thinking through it. I mean, Devontae Smith and AJ Brown's still pretty good.
Mhm.
So I mean, Thielen and Jefferson, like they're pretty good, but like,
Davis and Diggs.
yeah, but like Metcalf and Lockett are pretty good.
Oh
Like
yes.
on
Oh,
paper, I don't know if Metcalf surpasses a lot of them names that we said as the wide receiver 1, but Lockett could definitely be better than a lot of those wide receiver 2s that we said.
easily.
Um, but yeah, no, I agree. Like they have that, and like you said, Goodwin's been pretty good for them too. Has come along well. I don't hate their tight end. I don't hate Disley either.
Yeah, Disley and
Um,
Fant, not stop. Those are solid 2 tight ends too. So
yeah,
it's not like
yeah. And the running, I mean, Walker's looked good so far. Yeah, like I said, like I think they're really set up well for the future, and hope for the best for them. That's all.
well, I don't think Pete's gonna retire now after this year like you thought he was going to.
No, I don't think so either, man. I don't think so either.
All right, Joe. Before we wrap up, I want to get a little bit. I'm gonna throw you a quick question here.
Mm-hmm.
What do we got? What was your original Super Bowl pick? What'd you have beforehand?
The
Do you
one
remember?
the me getting excited one, or the me like initial one?
Initially, like your actual realistic. What was your guess?
I don't know if I said it on here, but for me it was Bills and San Fran.
Okay. Are you
Yeah,
are you sticking to your guns? Would you stick to your guns right now with Bills and San Fran?
I'm gonna have to like yes, but if I had to like replace bets now, I would probably change it to the Eagles. I mean, I think that's like kind of the obvious one in the NFC. The
Right.
AFC's wide open again. I might have to go to the Bengals, man.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Bengals
think I
going
might.
back to back.
Mm-hmm. I might have to go with the Bengals. They're starting to get hot just at the right time right now.
Well, that's the one thing that I feel like people don't understand about football. It's not the best team most of the time all year that makes it to the wins the Super Bowl, right? It's the team that gets hot, like you mentioned. The Giants, they just got hot at the right time and they found a way. Green Bay, when they won their Super Bowl, got hot at the right time. Was the last team in. Like most of the like Bengals last year, they were like
Yeah.
the 4 seed. Like they were, no one expected them to make it to the Super Bowl, and then there they were. It's
Yeah.
all about when you get hot at the right time. It's not always the best team that's been there on paper throughout the year. Like the Rams. Rams weren't the best team last year, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl, arguably. So
Rams look. I don't know. The Rams were like one of
they
the
were
best teams last
they were
year.
up in that discussion, right? But you can make the argument that they weren't the best team throughout the season.
Yeah, I guess that could be said. Yeah, but like I thought they were the kind of weren't they more the clear cut number one in the NFC? Maybe not clear cut, but like they were probably the number one.
I had Tampa Bay. And because the Rams had to go to Tampa Bay in that playoff game. The Rams,
I
it
guess
wasn't
you're
like they
right.
were
Yeah,
hosting games. So
I guess you're right. Yeah. Well, because the Rams hosted what the NFC Championship game.
yeah, because San Fran went into Green Bay and beat them.
Yes, that's correct. That's
Because
correct.
Green Bay was the best team throughout last
You're
year.
right. That is right.
So
That is
I
right.
think
That's right.
LA was the 3 last year.
I
Yeah,
think you're correct. Yes, because the NFC East was probably the 4.
right.
I think that's right. Yes. Yeah. Wait, no, that's wrong. I'm sorry. Dallas was 4.
Yeah,
Eagles were
Dallas
7.
was the 4.
Eagles were 7 because
Eagles
the
were
Eagles
7 because they went
played.
to Tampa Bay.
Yes, that's
Rams
correct.
hosted
Arizona.
Arizona. That game was a dud.
Mm-hmm.
Niners went to Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Then Niners
That's
won.
how it worked
Went to
out.
Green
Yeah.
Bay.
Yeah.
Rams
So
Rams went to Tampa.
yeah.
We
So
forget
that's
that.
why.
We're trying to. Our history's not that far off. We can
Nah.
barely remember what we did yesterday, but we still remember our football somewhat.
Oh, I can go all the way back, man. I try to go all the way back. So. But yeah, no, like I said, if I had to replace I'm gonna still go with San Fran and the Bills, just because like that's the bet I have. But if I had
Right,
to replace today, I mean, I still think it's the Eagles, and I like the Bengals, man. I think they really proved a lot to me this past weekend against Kansas City.
right. So I had Bills Bucks. I had Tom. I believed in Tom one last time. Definitely not taking the Bucks again. I'm gonna stick with the Bills
Okay.
because I think if they don't get it done this year, they're never gonna get it done. I don't think in
Wow.
this wide
Okay.
open AFC.
Okay.
I think they're gonna. I think because they have the Jets and the Dolphins, both teams that they lost to these last 2 weeks, they're gonna run them out of the building at home to secure home field. It's gonna run through the mafia. I'm still gonna ride the Bills, and yeah, I'd probably switch it to the Eagles.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. I like it.
Yeah, but my man, I appreciate you coming on for the final whistle. It's always a pleasure having you on. I
Always a
mean,
good time,
it's
man.
always a good time.
Always a good time talking football. We got to get into some golf stuff later.
Oh,
I
yo, did you see Charlie's? Did you see Charlie's swing last week on Twitter?
did. It looks good. Looks very
Yo,
good.
he looks huge too.
Yeah. Yeah, he grew up since last year. Yeah, no, he looks really good. I think the match too is coming up soon. So
Yeah, Saturday, him and McElroy versus Thomas Spieth.
yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think Woods and McIlroy are plus 125. I
Yo, I would
think
take that right now, people.
maybe, yeah. So that'll be good too.
You
And
know,
we're starting to get
Tiger's not gonna let Tiger and Rory are gonna. They might. Well, the issue is it's only 12 holes, right? So like, it's not like a full 18. So it's like, how do you like judge that, right? So,
yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, golf's definitely coming back.
yo,
College
Liv was a huge success, man.
Yeah, it held its own, man. It really did hold its own. I saw actually a couple people are, I believe, playing in the next Open tournament that they have. Like, 2 people of well-known names is Patrick Cantley and Xander Schauffele. They're going to play in their Open tournament sometime in January, I think.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so we'll see how it all works out again this year. It'll be interesting. But yeah, golf's coming. College basketball is just starting back up. The NBA is kind of getting in the swing of things. Yeah, it's coming along, man. So I'll definitely have to be on again soon, and we'll get into some more discussions there. So
Absolutely. Sports are in full swing now, which is always nice at this time of the year with everything pretty much going on other than Major League Baseball. But like we said, like all those signings that were taking place, like Trey Turner going to your Phils, that was a nice little cupcake. You guys spent way too much money, but that's how baseball works. So,
That is
but
what it
Joe,
is.
always a pleasure, my man. Definitely keep in touch. Have you on sooner rather than later, my friend.
Absolutely. Great time as always.
All right, everybody, enjoy your day. That was another episode of the Final Whistle Sports Podcast.